You know, it's a huge challenge every city with a historic heart eventually has to face. How do you bring a beloved old neighborhood into the 21st century? You need safer buildings, you need better infrastructure, but you can't just bulldoze the past. It's this universal, really tricky balancing act.
So, the real question is, how in the world do you go about rebuilding a historic district piece by piece?
And this is the most important part. How do you do all that without completely erasing the very character, the soul that made it so special to begin with?
Well, we actually have a fascinating window into this exact problem. A brand new study gives us what is basically a detailed report card on one neighborhood's pretty ambitious transformation in Erzurum, Turkey. And we're going to break down exactly what it says.
Okay, so let's dive right in. To really get what happened with the Gürcükapı project, we first have to understand the bigger picture of urban transformation in Turkey. It's a story that's really driven by necessity.
So, how Turkey has approached urban development has really changed a lot over the decades. As you can see here, it kind of started back in the 50s as a way to deal with all this unplanned growth. But the real game changer came in 2012. A new law basically reframed urban renewal as a national policy for disaster risk reduction, which is absolutely critical for a country in a major earthquake zone. Then, after the tragic earthquakes in 2023, this whole effort got put on the fast track, centralizing authority to get things done quicker. And that brings us right to the heart of Erzurum. The historic Gürcükapı district, a really vital commercial hub, had a huge problem. Its buildings weren't just old and run down, they were a serious earthquake risk. Taking action wasn't just a good idea, it was urgent. So, what was the solution? Well, the city came up with a pretty detailed transformation plan to tackle this massive challenge head on. They set three really clear goals. First, and this was number one, safety. Get rid of the risky buildings. Second, revitalization. Bring back the district's historic buzz as a major trade hub. And third, preservation. You got to protect the cultural heritage, especially the historic Gürcükapı Mosque right at its center. The way they executed this was super methodical. First, they figured out who all 113 property owners were. Then, they relocated businesses with compensation deals and drew up a new plan. Then came the really dramatic part. The old buildings came down, and get this, the new construction was finished in just about 6 months. Incredible. Finally, 41 new business units and a much-needed parking lot were handed over to the owners. But here's the million-dollar question. Did the plan actually work for the people involved? To find out, researchers went out and surveyed the property owners, and the results are pretty fascinating. Let's start with what they rated as very good. Okay, the highest score by a long shot was for identity, earning a remarkable 4.46 out of 5. Now, this is a huge deal. It tells us that the project absolutely nailed one of its toughest and most important goals, rebuilding without erasing the neighborhood's soul. So why did it score so high? Well, the owners felt the unique local character wasn't just an afterthought, it was actually preserved. They saw that historical buildings were carefully protected and that the new designs just fit with the surrounding architecture. The city's motto was, preserved history, transforming city, and on this point, they totally delivered. Another huge win for the project was in accessibility, scoring an impressive 4.3 out of 5. This one is all about how easy, safe, and just plain welcoming it is for people to actually get around and use the new district. The owner said that the new design is fantastic for people on foot and that it's seamlessly connected to public transit. And you know what's really cool? This connects to another big success. The project also scored very good in equity. The designs were praised for being great for people with disabilities, the elderly, and kids. It was built for everybody. But let's be real, no project is perfect. And this is where things get really interesting, the complexities. The report card also pointed out some clear areas where things could have been better. So let's look at what was rated good, but didn't quite make it to very good. The economic impact, for instance, wasn't some simple success story. It was actually, well, a very mixed bag. And check this out, because this is where the economic story gets fascinating. On the one hand, property values shot through the roof, a huge win for the owners, scoring a very good 4.6. But on the other hand, that boom in customers and visitors they were hoping for, that only scored average. So the new spaces were worth more, but they weren't necessarily drawing in bigger crowds. And here we have the project's lowest score, participation. Now, at 3.8 out of 5, it's still rated good, but it definitely points to a challenge with community engagement.
This is all about how involved people felt in the whole decision-making process.
And you can really hear that lower score in comments like this one from an owner who wasn't happy. A failure. Problems continue, the municipality is not taking responsibility, the heating system is problematic. It's a really powerful reminder that even with high overall scores, some people felt their specific problems were just left behind.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What can other cities planning their own transformations learn from Gürcükapı's whole experience? Let's take a look at the final, complete report card. So here it is, all 10 dimensions right next to each other. You can see the standout successes right at the top: identity, accessibility, and equity. And then down at the bottom, while they're still ranked good, you see the areas with room to grow, like participation and that mixed economic benefit. It's a super clear, data-driven picture of a project that had some major strengths, but also some real identifiable challenges.
So if you boil it all down, the crucial point is this. Successful urban transformation is so much more than just putting up new buildings. Gürcükapı's story really shows us it's a delicate, difficult balance. A balance between preserving history, building safe new structures, making sure the economic benefits are shared, and, maybe most importantly, making sure the community feels like they were actually heard every single step of the way.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If a historic part of your own city was being totally transformed, what would you value the most? The shiny new buildings, the preserved history, or having a real say in how it all went down? It's a question that pretty much every city is going to have to answer sooner or later.